Now, South Africa's school infrastructure is in dire need of rehabilitation, with over 20 schools in Gauteng believed to be dilapidated and abandoned. The Build One South Africa political party says it will hold government to account for its dereliction of duty. This week, its leader Mmusi Maimane visited the govt secondary school in Soweto, which has been shut down for almost a year due to it being unsafe for habitation. Maimane joins us now to discuss BOSA's plan to fix and reopen the school. Mmusi, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. I think I butchered the name of the school, but I think the issues in itself are very glaring when it comes to access to quality education, particularly in under-resourced communities. What is your stance in terms of trying to fix the problem?
Well, good afternoon, and good afternoon to fellow South Africans. I mean, none of us can deny the fact that the most devastating legacy of apartheid is an education that is dependent on where you live and how much money you earn. What I discovered in Zola, in this particular school, was a school ultimately that's left derelict. 27 million rand has been spent into that, and communities now find themselves, by circumstances of birth, without a school, without proper education, and have to be ferried far. Our view on this matter is that not only should the government account, but we must rethink the model. And that's why I've been very deliberate about saying, let's give parents the vouchers. Let's let parents decide where they want to send their kids, because the right to choose the best education should not be a privilege only for the rich. We already spend 13,500 rand per child per year. Let us give it to the parents as a voucher that they can decide. And then for the property of this respective school, part of our legal challenge is to say precedent on what happened in Costa. Let us form a collaboration school there so that parents and the community in a public-private partnership can build and run the school, and we can deliver the best education for children in that community.
Yeah, well, we know that we also have a subculture of impunity, Mmusi, when it comes to accountability, primarily when it comes to procurement, supply chain processes. You just mentioned 27 million rand had been invested in this particular school, and clearly that has just gone down the drain.
Absolutely. The school now reflects a monument of corruption, a place where people literally are living in a space where money has been thrown down the drain, bricks are being stolen. The current infrastructure that was built previously is now remaining in such a place where the community can come and grab it, and that's what happens. I just feel that if we're going to fix the challenges of our country, not only does it require management, but we need to bring it down to communities and make sure that communities themselves are able to be much more effective at the management of their own schooling programs. The governing body in the school has been left out the lurch. This is the sort of change that we need to achieve if we're going to fix education. It goes way beyond issues of curriculum, etc. It's about infrastructure. And when you look at it even nationally, it should embarrass all of us as South Africans that our children still studying with schools that have got pit latrines, where ultimately infrastructure has decayed. It perpetuates, without doubt, the legacy of apartheid as we have it.
And as you're saying, this is a perennial problem, and it's perpetuated primarily because there is this finger pointing and blaming of various departments. If it's not public works, it would be the Department of Education. And so where then do you put the blame for the government to account?
I've taken legal action against Panyaza Lesufi, who's the Premier of Gauteng. And I've written to them for them to account for the schools. How do we recuperate the funds, rebuild? Because ultimately education is still to this day a competence of both the shared national and provincial government. And therefore Gauteng must account in this regard. But we'll certainly be taking action across the country, because I really believe strongly that to fix this, we have to get back to empowerment of communities. So I'm taking accountability to Panyaza, and furthermore, we'll be taking legal action. This will be a precedent issue to make sure that we fix the quality of education in this country. It is a strong fight, and we've got to ensure that it is correct. Otherwise, our townships will become dormitories of unemployment.
And exactly that, and not having the requisite skills to meet the requirements of the marketplace, which is exactly why we're seeing in the high employment rate, particularly amongst the youth. But it's a mammoth task. I mean, this is one school that you're targeting, but we're told that there is at least 20 dilapidated buildings or schools that have been left unattended and gone to the ruins. So in this step that you're taking, it's going to be a journey, it's a process, but it is a noble cause nonetheless. What do you expect the outcomes to be?
Well, firstly, I think we've got legal precedent. So what I'm hoping to achieve is that, as we saw in the community of Koster, where when the government fails to do its job, the community is then given the adequate resources to run the school. I'm calling on private sector citizens to say, here's a facility that we can, in partnership, create a collaboration to rebuild the school, and the state is obligated to refund on that score. If we achieve that, we can already set a precedent in more and more communities. I've seen the model work internationally. We can bring it to South Africa, because once you've done that, you can also further capacitate the school with additional infrastructure before we even talk about just the bricks and mortar. Let's include IT facilities. Let's include better reading facilities, so that one day when we talk about true freedom, we talk about educated kids closer to home, rather than what many of us grew up seeing, where if you wanted a good education, you had to travel kilometers outside your own community, which meant that your quality of life was particularly different. Now we can achieve that closer to home by offering a quality of education that's comparable to any other suburb, so that indeed, in the long run, we have equitable education for all our children. We've got to reform our education system if we are going to deliver on the promise of freedom.
And tell us maybe of the Friends of Build One South Africa, your strategic partners. I'm almost inclined to think of, rewards programs such as My School, and I'm sure there are many others that would help, impoverished communities with the necessary resources. So who are the Friends of Build One South Africa in this particular matter?
So what we're doing is, having reached out to private communities, one of the arguments I've made is that if we build a Jobs and Justice Fund, I've spoken to a number of corporates across the country to say, we can look at redress and restitution differently. When we look at the BBBEE legislation, it forces people to create a different ownership pattern. What my call is now is to say, let's build this Jobs and Justice Fund, use the fund to be able to partner in communities along with the voucher program to develop the school. So we've spoken to many companies. I can't list all of them here. And I've spoken to already citizens in the NGO community who are dealing with education to say, how best can we do this so that we begin to repair education? This is but not only the only school I've been to. I was in Thokoza, where a school was built on a swamp, brand new infrastructure, literally lying to ruins. We can do better as a country by making sure that in partnership, not only with business, but we can partner also with NGO, civil society, to be able to come together and fix education in communities. And ultimately, whether it's Curo, whether it's any of the other big private school institutions, they would be willing to work institutionally to bring on a quality education in townships.
Mmusi Maimane, thank you indeed for your time. We're speaking to Build One South Africa leader Mmusi Maimane about the litigation process that they've undertaken for the Gauteng Department of Education, in particular for their dereliction of duty when it comes to dilapidated schooling infrastructure. So thanks indeed for him or Mr. Maimane joining us.